So just for everyone who is, you know, who's listening, who's tuning in, who's more familiar or less familiar, Carol and I met many years ago. Actually, before the deck, the Sakki Sakki deck was published. We met in New York. We met. There was a holiday market, and she passed by and she liked my art, and we connected this way. And then sometime later we reconnected and we worked together on the Playing with Symbols, the book that came with the Sakki Sakki deck. And then, you know, when I met Carol, I was single and lived in New York. And then, you know, I got married, I had 2 kids. So there was like this many years of a lot going on. And we haven't kept in touch, but we didn't lose touch either. And
well, you started, I was attracted to some of the individual cards that you were selling as miniatures. And I remembered you when I needed an artist for a project of mine, for a website. So our first dealing was a business dealing where you used some of your magic to help me in my business. And then we did stay in touch in the way kind of people do, where, you know, there's something there, right? But you don't live near each other. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, every time I came though, I remember we
visited every time, right?
Yes, you came from Rhode Island. So there, you know, I think this thing about recognizing art, Carol, you know, we haven't really spoken about it, to be honest, but, you know, we said it's going to be we'll be kind of free talking here. I think when someone is attracted to someone's art, I think there is some deeper recognition there that has nothing to do with the art, but there is like some psychic bond or maybe a past life. I believe in past lives. I'm not dealing with it actively, you know, I'm not like diving in to find out what and where and whom. But I think, like, you know, so this kind of connections that are happening through art are very potent and very strong. This has been my experience more than once, by the way. And I see a lot of these kind of connections that started with the art, that they just keep going. So I think art is a beautiful filter of attraction, right? It like really brings you, you know, the right people close. So anyway, so when I decided I wanted to do this deck again, which I've been thinking about for a while, and I talked about it with Carol, and Carol said yes. So this is the new baby. So let's talk a little bit about this.
A long labor.
Yes.
For a new baby, yeah.
That was much longer than the first baby. Although, you know, I think sometimes it may be easier to write a book from scratch. But
absolutely,
yeah. But here there wasn't really any reason to start from scratch, but there was a lot of reasons to revisit. So let's talk a little bit, you know. Sometimes I don't want to always, when I talk about I'm the artist, also talk about the Sakki Sakki, but they're really, it's a reincarnation. You cannot talk with the one without the other. You know, it doesn't stand alone. It stands alone, but it's like...
Yeah, and I think that's one of the values of your book, particularly with all the new richness. You know, there's a lot of big books for tarot that have astrology, they have Kabbalah, but this really has a whole other journey that's woven through the tarot journey, right? There's the artist journey that's woven throughout this that I found, you know, it adds just another whole dimension. And it's worth, I think, you know, exploring what you added to it this time. Even more, I mean, there's the personal reflections, stuff that's really valuable, also, not just to seekers in the tarot, but to any artist or anyone seeking truth through art.
Yes, it's, you know, how was it for you? I wasn't planning to ask you this, but how was it for you, this unfoldment of the creative process and this, you know, going more in? How was that for you, well, to witness and to be part of?
Yeah, and you know, one thing in particular stands out. And of course, there's, when you're editing and you're writing copy, there's always a level that's very businesslike. But this time you asked me, because I think because we've known each other so long, we understand each other's minds and hearts and symbolism. you asked me to actually write some of the small sections for the individual cards. And at first I thought, I felt that I was maybe violating your propriety for those, your proprietorship. But you said something to me. I said, how am I going to know what the cards mean? And you said that when you create in your process where you're using the found object elements from your library, that you create the cards for aesthetics. And what you found is that when the aesthetics work, when the composition of the card and the elements work aesthetically, that they work in terms of the deeper meaning. And that was like such an insight to me. And it enabled me to write confidently from the heart, from channeling, to sort of be an alternative channel, which those cards have set up very nicely with the elements you put in them. So that was an amazing experience for me. It was a real insight.
I have goosebumps when you say that.
I had goosebumps when I heard it. So, you know.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's true. I always say that, you know, form first. I know it's like, but think about it. Think about nature, how all the forms are also so
yeah,
like amazing. So there's something when the form works, you know, you kind of clicked the whole path, you know. It's like you really made the connection. I think this is
form has energy. Form has energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's actually the confirmation or maybe the establishing of the channel.
Yeah, good. That's good. Yeah,
right?
It makes sense. Yeah. Like a wormhole opening up, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The composition clicks. It's like a puzzle, right? It clicks, and then you're like, you know, good to go.
Yeah.
With the meaning and really being part of the big picture and this whole thing. You know, I think that what just happened here, which by the way, whoever is watching, we did not plan.
We didn't plan it. No.
But I think this is how really our process has been all along, that one of us, you know, will come up with an idea and then we will kind of play with it together. I think we're, you know, it's not just because we know each other for years, and I think we have a more than average mind compatibility, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, we work really well together, and also it has been, you know, really joy. So just wanted, you know, to ask that.
I was thinking this morning that a lot of artists may not understand their process as well as you do, or maybe they haven't inspected their process. And even if they have, they might not be as capable as you are of expressing it, communicating it to other people. You know, my job is a verbal communicator, and I rarely edit someone who's as good with words as you are, as for complex thought. So I think that's another thing that's a richness of the book. It's also been a richness of the experience for me working on this project.
Wow. Okay. I appreciate that, because, you know, the written word for me is not exactly my forte, but I start to think otherwise little by little, and very much because of you, by the way. So, you know, I think one of my strengths is recognizing patterns.
Yeah.
And I think that's why also I was so attracted to the tarot and astrology to begin with, because I just love I love that there is a structure, and I love to see the freedom in the structure, and I love to see how all the elements are playing and binding together. And this is what I brought into the deck. You know, I wanted to play with as many elements as possible, and that's why I also added now the color quest. I felt it's totally possible, you know, to just add another layer, you know, and there's, you know, the elements and the numbers and the this and the that and the sensitive inks and the Kabbalah, and you can go as deep as you want and as shallow as you want. Like you can go, you know, to whichever level of depth and complexity, you know, you want. And I think for me, working again on this book on that level of depth, because really got deep into it, it was very, very worthwhile. Like the experience itself was very worthwhile. And I hope that whoever gets the book, whether they got the other one or not, they will really, you know, they will really feel, right? And one of the things that we really changed You want to talk about the language thing that
Yeah,
changed, the
that
inclusivity there.
you decided to make it more inclusive. So, and one of my jobs as editor was making sure that it was consistent throughout. But for every single card, um, there was a consideration. This wasn't something done wholesale. There was a consideration on what was right, what felt right for every single card. And we had some discussions about that for particular
Yeah,
cards too. So
yeah.
it was the product of much thought and care and empathy, really, to do that.
Yeah, I didn't think, I don't know, that was a surprise to me. The deck was pretty inclusive to begin
Yeah.
with. It wasn't like, but I don't know where it came from that I wanted to change the language. So I really wanted, I had an old astrology book and I was reading it and I was like, what is this? They were referring to women as some, this is a woman's thing, this is a man's thing. I was like, no, I was like, this is so like, oh, another century. So it was very important to me to reflect, the kind of times, but not out of, it didn't come out of a politically correct desire. I just really felt also that it was something that the deck was already doing.
Yeah.
The deck asked itself to do. This is what I want to say. That it wasn't, that's my intention, let me do it. No, it emerged from the cards themselves. The cards themselves asked
In
for
some
that.
cases, you had decisions to make because you were adding heads.
Oh, the
Yeah.
heads. The heads. Okay, how was for you to see the heads added? How was that for you?
It took me a while when I was working on the first deck to sort of get down with the lack of heads, and I understood why you did it. And it's funny because when I use the deck or when I show it to people, the old deck, a lot of people just got it immediately, well before I did. And when you added them, I was like, well, this is going to be cool. But it did add another dimension. It wasn't just adding a head. There were a lot of decisions around how the head would look, whether the eyes would be downcast or looking up, what type of hat, or so again, it was another level where there was a lot of thought that went into it. I mean, I can attest to the fact that we spoke in terms of writing the sections describing the elements in the card, right? From the artist's journal, we had a lot of conversations about the cards with the heads added. It was quite interesting, and it's an exploration. And that reminds me of something that I got from the new book, that it just really struck me that when you talk about truth that emerges as the artist explores, so the point of doing art, whether it's perceiving in the world, whether any one of your creative powers, right, or getting an insight, or just creating what you want to create, that as you do it, as you're doing the exploration, truth is emerging for you. And so each of those heads is a new representation of truth.
Wow. This is beautiful, It's so true. It's so true. And I think in the writing process, I think that the most difficult part for me was the descriptions. Because it was asking a different part of my brain to work.
Right.
It was not the usual talking about the creative powers, right? It was really to be an observer. And my biggest strength is to be the inner muse, is to be driven by my inner muse, which means first I create something and then I see what I created. Right. And here I had to take the final piece and figure out what really I see.
Deconstruct it, but not like a machine would do it. Because for each one of those descriptions, right, there were choices as to what elements to focus on, and there was insight on the meaning of each of those elements. So
Yes.
it wasn't, you know, it was, each one of those is like a mini thesis, really. That's the level of
Yes.
work that goes into it, right? Both in terms of choice, right, of what to focus on, and then on interpretation. So, and I think that's an insight. I've shown the new deck to a friend of mine who's a very well-known artist, fine artist. He's got collectors worldwide, and he went nuts when he saw the section of the book where you described how you combine the elements. I mean, there's so much richness in there. Again, not just for people who are traditional seekers or readers of the tarot, but in terms of the whole creative process. You know, we're almost as if at one level the tarot is a metaphor, or it could be a pathway of stepping stones in that process.
Wow, I love how you describe this. You know, you're also reflecting back to me really all this journey, and I think I always said that the Sakki changed my life. You know, in so many ways.
Yeah.
But this process again kind of did it again. You
Sure.
know. There was a real, that's why I call it as a reincarnation. You know, I feel a very different person after this process now.
Mm-hmm.
And also I feel that I closed a circle, because it always, like a few years ago, already knew I wanted to add the heads. It was just finding the moment to do it. And it was really closing this project entirely. Otherwise, I felt it's always open. You know, I may do other Sakki stuff, but this deck is now complete. I'm not going to touch it again. I said that, and I remember you told me you never know.
But well, but you know what? One of the cool things in the deck are the new cards, and in particular, I really found the Creative Powers cards very, very interesting, because they're a new way to sort of understand yourself, or figure out which are you, you know, which type are you, or are you a combination of the types? And do you want to talk about that? Just oh, you got them. Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, I brought them. You know, I used to have a quiz that you could like answer questions and see, you know, which one you were. I may bring up the quiz again. It was for self magic. It was like for a completely different thing. But I mean, this is a pattern I discovered. You know, like in which ways we receive inspiration.
Yeah.
Okay, and what kind of inspiration and way of being creative is valid or is considered creative, right? Yeah. So we have the observer, the visionary, and the inner muse. And you know what? I want to pick a card out of these three. Let me see what will come up. What do you know? I got the inner muse card.
Imagine that.
I wanted to get the observer, but I got the inner muse.
Interesting.
Yeah, I let it be whatever it wants to be, you know? Yeah, the inner muse is real. I think the inner muse, I used to call it the artist, by the way. There was a limit of how many cards I can call an artist in a deck. And this is really the card that first you create, and then you see what you have created.
Yeah.
So you can't envision, you can't dream it up, you can't notice it or curate it or observe it. You just have to, you know, go and do it.
I'm an observer.
But maybe
that's why I'm an observer. That's why I could write about what I saw in your card. I think I was born to do that, because from the time I was a little kid, how I would see things is I would immediately translate them into words. So I think that it helped me interpret your cards.
And that's why it was easy for you to do it, and it was difficult for me to do it, because it needed different. Okay, well, you see, one more thing we're discovering here just by being here, the two of us. Yeah. This is great. Okay, so you know, if you're an observer, I'm going to give like a little homework for whoever is going to listen to this. But before I do that, is there anything you want to ask me? Again, guys, we didn't talk about it. This is just, you know, is there something you would like to ask, or you know? I've done quite a lot of little videos now explaining this and this and this, and
Talk a little bit about the, things, something else. The sensitive inks were something it took me a long time to understand.
okay.
And I think you said there was something like another layer or a background, or the fact that they're black and white. You want to talk about the sensitive inks at all?
Okay, yeah, sure. So the sensitivity, okay, so again, I'm going back to form,
Yeah.
okay? Because I wanted, okay, so I was doing like vector-based characters, right? Vector-based art. So there is a lot of vector-based art. Like it's not, nothing unique about it. And so there may be my
I
line.
don't even know what that is.
Vector is that there is, it's flat. It's
Oh,
flat and you can move
yeah.
it.
Okay.
It's vector, it's not pixelated. It's like flat. It's like usually there's a fill and line.
Okay.
It's flat surfaces of color. It's not like aqua. It's not watercolor. It's not oil color. It's flat. And also you can move them around, the computer, Illustrator.
Oh, got it.
So because I was working with big brands like Mattel and Disney and Nickelodeon, wordsmith, so they are also like cartoons, right? Cartoons. So they're like fill and line, flat. But that was my style. But then I wanted to do something that would differentiate my style and that would actually create a style.
Yeah.
So it will be recognizable, and it's not going to look like everything else. So at that time, I was experimenting. I had these very special like papers and inks, which how I got those is a whole other story for another share time. I'm sharing it every few years. I'll share it again soon. I had a neighbor that I kind of inherited these things from. That's like this short story. Anyway, so I was experiment with ink and like little pieces of paper, and I was creating these black and white drawings, and I call them sensitive inks. So that was that.
I want to say something about that from the standpoint of drawing on what that can mean to the deck, which is, and what that can mean to the artist, which is, ink is harder to control. Ink there's a kind of letting it happen and maybe guiding it along with ink, with pen and ink, that there isn't with art that's color inside the lines, so
Carol,
what does that
such
mean
an observer.
when you're looking at a card, when you're doing a reading, or just pull a card and you look at it and you look at those sensitive inks? I won't say it's like a Rorschach exactly, but it's not just another layer in terms of functional creation. It's another layer of insight or of an emotion, of letting go. I never said that before. This just came to me now because I asked you about the sensitive ink. And I mean, all I know is my issues with, watercolor or, God forbid, ink. I mean, stuff can go wrong with ink, right? And stuff can go right that you aren't expecting.
Yes. No, ink is tricky. No, but the way you said it now, you see, that's you bring your genius in the whole thing. Like I do the art, but you just bring your genius of just articulating these things and understanding. It's just beautiful.
It's all in the cards.
It's all in the cards. It's all in the cards. So anyway, so I had these, and I even had them on my wall. So when I wanted to like do something that is a little different, I thought of taking them and put them in the background. And then I also felt, this is something that other people cannot, immediately like do, like, copy the style. So it gave me some edge, and it was fun. And also, and also out of these, these were also acting as found objects, right? Because this is my process really, that first I create all my materials, and then I pick and mix and match. So I don't create things especially. I don't create compositions especially. Everything is emerging from pre-existing materials. So the sensitive inks were also acting like this. And you're right, they're giving a whole different layer of, you can find meaning there, you can find metaphors, you can find things that you see that not the same, you know, different people can see different things. It's a little bit enigmatic, and it's like a backdrop. Let's say it's like a theater, right? And we have the artist, right, with the stage, right? So the sensitive beings, in a way, they act like the backdrop, like the nature, the mountains, the trees, the sea, whatever.
Setting the
whole
stage.
thing. Yes, yes. So yeah, that's another complex, you know, piece there. That you're right. This too can be a little thesis by itself. Wow, you see, every time we talk, there is more insights,
Right.
more insights, more
It's
insights.
kind of like one of our sessions, except it's not in text.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, well, that's why we like also, you know, doing this together. And I think, you know, for some people that are, you know, let's say they're creating a deck or an oracle deck and they want to write a book. I want to say two things, you know, to these people. First of all, I really had no idea that I could write. Like there was someone that was more removed from writing. It was me. Okay, so if I manage to do that, anyone can. That's one thing. And because if you have something to say, you actually can say it. This is what I'm saying. If you have something to say, there are ways to say it. That's one thing. And the other thing is that when you're working with someone, sometimes they can help you, you know, get your strengths out, and they can help your strengths, you know, come to life better and easier. I mean, there's no doubt that you gave me the confidence, you know what I mean? You gave me the confidence to put my words out.
Yeah, well,
because
you know, a good editor is going to help you say what you want to say, as opposed to, and I mean, we had a number of conversations where I thought something was ambiguous. I wasn't sure which thing you meant. And we explored, you know, what exactly are you wanting to communicate here, so that I could help you disambiguate it and make it clear as you wanted it to be. I mean, there's a little bit of a lost in translation, right? Because English isn't your first language, and although you're fluent in it, most of my professional work is with people whose first language is in English, mostly technical editing. So you have to be able to ask the other person, and I think you're very clear with that to me too. You have to be able to ask the other person what they're intending, right? You have to ask people to sort of lay their cards out. And I think that's why it works so well, because you have a lot to say. A lot to say.
It's time I'll start saying it.
You don't have a problem. You don't have a problem. You've got a pretty broad and fast channel. Like whatever you're channeling, it's like a fire hose, you know.
We're getting there. I appreciate you reflecting that. You know, it's always a little mystery, you know, about what we're meant to do. But I know that this thing for me is definitely was something that I was meant to do in this life. Yeah. And I'm so glad I took the time to really close the circle, you know, with this project by putting the heads back, because this is really what, you know, made me want to do that. Okay, Carol, so now let's close up. Let's take people to a little trip, since you're the observer.
Okay.
And so let's have people go for a little trip. Would you like to tell them what they can do with this?
Let's say this trip will be for the next 24 hours. Sorry, a door just slammed and a cat just jumped off my lap. Let's take a trip for the next 24 hours, whether you're indoors or out, wherever you are. to spend extra time being the observer. And when you're the observer, you're actually creating, right? You're not just staring at what's there. Whether you think about it or not, you're picking and choosing what you focus on. And you might be picking how you frame it, what's in the frame and what's not. For instance, that door was not in my frame for this whole time, and I didn't have it. I didn't have it on a doorstop, and I had the windows open. So, you know, my frame was very specific. And when you frame something, you're doing art, right? What you're observing, what you're choosing to focus on, just as if you were the camera, right? You're doing art. So spend the next 24 hours paying attention to what it is you're observing, whether you're cooking a meal, whether you're cleaning house, whether you're in the car, whether you're at the beach, wherever you are at work. Be the observer for the next 24 hours. Take some time to think about it and come up with, let's say, 5 things that maybe you just note down that you've observed, or how you observing yourself as the observer.
Oh, I like that one. That's what I like the most. You know, when I take sometimes my Legos at the beach, I started filming myself photographing the goddesses of the beach. And I'm calling this watching you watch me. You know, it's like...
Yeah. You get some insights when you go on a little sort of a hunt or a journey like that for 24 hours with a mission. You get some insights about what it is you're actually looking at. What are those choices you're making and why? So there's some good insights in doing that. So 24 hours, 5 things.
Amazing. Here someone says it's a great prompt. Thank you for the feedback. We will wrap up. Carol, I don't know how to even start thanking you ever about everything. But even today, like it was so nice. I have to go to watch back this thing as well. It was insightful, and I was like, I should put this in the book. No, we're done.
No more books. Not yet.
Listen, at some point there needs to be an end. I think that's why there is this relief also, especially now in the digital world, you know, like I do something, I can do it again, I can take it out, I can do another version in Canva, I can, you know, even in NFTs, you know, you can change it, but there's something with the printed matter that once it's printed, it's done. There is actually some there is a relief when something is done. Because then you can want to keep changing it and changing it, but now you can't change it, and you just have to accept it for what it is and let it speak for what it is, and let it, you know, have all the ripples for whatever it is.
It's nice to hold that book in your hand too.
Yes,
yes. Hold that book in your hand.
Yes, yes. I love holding that book in my hand, and I love seeing all her names here like this.
Yes.
So thank you, Carol. Thank you, everyone that joined in.
Thank you, everyone.